Okay, this video is to show you how to reverse the handing on this Falcon Mortise cassette. This is a long discontinued MM581. The old Newman Tonks logo is here. This lock is 20 years old at least. At least. Who knows? The purpose of using this, I could use almost any lock case. The purpose of using this is because it will be explanatory in terms of how you go about reversing a mortise lock. And nowadays, many of them are much easier. They'll have a slide button or a screw or ways to do it without having to open up the lock case. But the point of this lock is that you must open the lock case to reverse this. So what I like to do before I go about trying to reverse a mortise lock is determine how far I need to go with it. Do I even need to remove the cover? And you know, like I said, modern locks, you don't really, in many instances you don't need to, but at the same time, if you end up opening the lock case and you don't need to, like you can reverse it from the outside, you just end up wasting your time, meaning you could have done it faster. No problem opening up the lock case, it's just you end up wasting your time. So the first thing I do is I figure out what hand is it now and what do I have to turn it into. I know I have to turn it into a left-hand reverse. Well, this latch bolt, first of all, is either for a right-hand reverse or it's for a left hand. It's for one of those two applications. No matter what it is, I know it's not what I need. When it comes to mortise locks, you will have to either rehand the latch bolt or rehand the way that the hubs lock, or you'll have to do both. But what's interesting about this one is I'm going to have to rehand the deadlocking tab as well, because this is not a non-handed design that you see here. So the way that we start this is, and someone even has this marked as right-hand reverse. I could have marked that, I don't think so. But then I really confirm, I'll stick the trim in there, and I'll confirm that my handle is locked from what would be the outside. I'm expecting this is right-hand reverse, and I'm simply confirming that. Now, being a storeroom, that means on the other side, this would be completely unlocked at all times, and indeed, it is. Okay, so we know it's a right-hand reverse. Okay, I'll leave that trim out because I will need it. So at this point, I'm going to remove the screws that hold the lock case. Sometimes when you've got a lock case, there'll be a screw below a decal or a sticker. And this being a storeroom function, it means it doesn't have a deadbolt, so there'll be less moving parts inside of here, which is good in the sense that you'll find sometimes when you put the mortise case back on, it's a little bit easier when there's less parts that have moved that little micro amount that they'll move. Now you'll notice my hand is on the lock case. That's intentional. I'm keeping the lock case down all through the process of removing the last couple of screws. I don't want anything to move, jump on me. So at this point, I'm going to carefully lift the lock case off, and I generally grab it up here and just tip it back. Okay, so as you can see, there is not a lot happening here with this lock body, comparatively. It's a storeroom function, like I said, not a lot happening here. And if you were to take one of these lock bodies apart, I'm careful not to lift it too far. If you take one of these lock bodies apart and study them, you'll see, yeah, there's not a lot happening here. That's not going to stay there while I have it tipped up. So we know that we have to reverse this latch bolt. It's the wrong hand. We know that we have to reverse this deadlocking tab. We will have to figure out how that was. Then we'll have to reverse the locking hubs is what we'll have to do. So let's play with that part that just fell out. Figure out what we're doing with that. I'm going to say that it was in this way somehow. Yeah, I bet it was. and that spring was probably keeping it in some sort of tension, would be my guess. So I didn't want that part to fall out, obviously, because I didn't pay attention. Obviously I can roll the video back and look and see where that part was before it fell out. But we can also study what its function is. So when that deadlocking tab is in, it's obviously going to lock something. And that, it's probably got some functionality right there. These two pieces locking against each other. Until that's pushed in, no, it doesn't make sense like that. It may make sense like that. I'm going to try to do this without having to look back at the video. One thing I failed to say, and I'm not saying that because this part fell out. I usually, if it's complicated, I will take a picture of the Mortise case first, once I've removed the cover. So one tip that I have is there is a slot in the case cover for something to go in there. That could be it. The issue, however, is we are going to absolutely need to determine whether or not the lock works correctly after we've put it back together. I mean, is that the role that this thing plays? Yeah, I don't know. So the first and easiest thing really is to reverse the remember, we have to make this a left-hand reverse. Reversing the locking hubs. So they're spring-loaded. So we're going to solve that mystery one way or another. So latch bolt's got to come back. What you can do is pull that first locking hub out. Pull that spacer out. Now this is the part where it's spring-loaded. So we've got to pull this one out. And what's happening is that little notch right there is what keeps the exterior trim in the locked condition. So I know that that's on the wrong side. We're doing a left-hand reverse, so it's got to be on this side. So I'm going to put that aside, and I'm simply going to restack my locking hubs in the opposite order. So this one, that will be free, because the inside of the lock should always be free. Then that spacer. Then our locking hub. So now what I've done is I've restacked these such that the outside trim is always locked, because it will always be connected on this piece here. It can never turn. Never turn. But the inside can always turn. That inside piece can always turn. So that's the first thing we have to do. So we've got that done successfully. Now we have to flip that latch bolt over. That might require pulling that little C-clip out. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, so let's just try to do it without complete disassembly. Okay, so now I'm just going to turn it over. Okay, so I like that. That's turned over. That latch bolt will work. Now the issue is the deadlocking tab in the side. That has to be turned over. We know that. The question's going to be is how... Now the armor front is still on here, so I'm going to pull that off. I might need that deadlocking tab to come out that way. There may be a parts manual of this somewhere. I don't know that I have one. Yeah, this should be easy. Oh, that moved again. It should be easy. All I need to do is to flip it around. Yeah, that's no problem. Alright, I like how that is. Basically just put that back in the opposite direction. So the question really becomes is, what does this part do? That hole that's there definitely tells me that's where a spring goes in. At least I believe that's what it's telling me. And the fact that that spring fits over that post, I don't see how it would go anywhere else. So I'm going to put it back the way that I think that it goes, and I could be completely wrong. The issue is I'm not super comfortable with what function it provides. That has to go like that. So the key will go in, and the key, the cam is going to hit this lever. That'll pull the latch back. Okay, that's no problem. When this is in, that lever is clearly there to lock. Oh, it's coming out on me. That's there to clearly provide functionality of preventing the latch bolt from being pushed in, is what the deadlocking tab does. So when we push that in, there has to be, yeah, maybe that's all it is. Aha, okay. So we're getting to a point where we're figuring it out now. I think. Yeah. Okay. So what happens here is when the deadlocking tab gets pushed in, when this gets pushed in, it lifts up this member, and that notch right there is what will prevent the latch bolt from being pushed in, like that. What I'm doing with my left thumb is I'm emulating as if the deadlocking tab was pushed in. And what I believe this mystery piece is doing is simply providing tension to that component that does not permit the latch bolt from being depressed. I think. Okay. Yeah. So these pieces are connected to each other. And this must be under spring tension. Meaning for it to operate correctly, it has to be under spring tension. And I don't think it goes in like that. got that. And you will certainly notice that the lock doesn't work absolutely correctly without its cover on, because the cover has all of these slots cut in it where the pieces ride inside of. So I'm at the point where we're going to test this theory to see if all that thing is doing is... Yeah, it does make sense. Deadlocking tab goes in, pushes that entire lever that you can't see much of this way. That spring via this piece is going to force this up so that you can't push the latch bolt in. That's how this has to work. So what have we done? We've reversed the deadlocking tab. We understand its linkage. We have reversed the latch bolt, so it's the proper orientation for either a left-hand reverse or a right hand, as is the deadlocking tab. And we've restacked the hubs so that this face is the secured side, which is because of that notch right there that rides in this. So at this point, I'm going to put the lock case back on. And the key is to get all of the components that need to fit inside of the slots in the slots. And sometimes what will happen is I will need a small tool to get some of these pieces to fit back in the slot where they belong. And you'll know when the lock case is on because it will be flat. You'll be able to tell that it's flat. Very, no unusual margin there. And when the lock case is put back on, you can operate the lock as long as you're holding it, and it won't jump on you. Sometimes without that armor front, though, you'll get a little trouble. So my theory is that we did have that part correct, because it does seem to be sliding inside of there in terms of what we thought it would do. So I'm going to put the armor front back on just to keep the deadlocking tab captive. It is required to be there to keep it captive on this lock, which may be why it came from the factory with it installed. I pulled it out of the box and it was already installed. I don't know that for sure. I don't recall exactly where I came up with this lock. But if I get my hands on a lock that I know is unusual, I will certainly put it onto my shelf. And indeed, why are we going? Why are we going over this lock? Well, I have a client who has a country club, and the entire facility is full of these old style Falcon mortise locks. They literally sawzalled the latch bolt to get in the opening. They lost the key, whatever they did. It's awful. They drilled the cylinder. Drilling a cylinder intentionally as a means of destructive bypass, they couldn't have done it any worse way. They drilled it in completely the wrong way. They obviously got frustrated because they drilled right through the broaching of the cylinder. That's not going to get you in. That's just going to drill a big hole through the broaching of the cylinder. You've got to drill the shear line of a cylinder. I happen to have a mortise cylinder here within reach. They drilled right here. Well, here's the shear line. This is where you need to drill. You destroy that shear line and you can forcibly move the plug. Well, they drilled here. They did nothing but enlarge that hole. So when they were defeated by that failed attempt, they then sawzalled the latch bolt, and what he was sawzalling was a lock body that he can't get anymore. He literally destroyed the lock body, and actually, I will let him know that I should be able to find I think I have another function, like a 521 function, an entrance function, where we can pull the latch bolt out and salvage that old lock, because he's out of options. And in fact, this same client has ordered cylinders and I think other Falcon discontinued locks from me because I've been able to locate them. But that well is drying up. I mean, the year is 2022, and these locks don't exist. They haven't been made for maybe 20 years. I don't recall. All right, so I'm putting the screws back on, and the test is going to be making the lock function. Testing it is what I mean to say. Making sure that it is now a left-hand reverse. I've got those tight. Now what you'll notice is someone did right on their left-hand reverse, I'm going to get rid of that, because 1 out of 10 times your customer is going to call you and say, you sent me a right-hand reverse. No, I didn't. I reversed that for you. I did it myself. Nope, you sent me a right-hand reverse. No, you don't understand. I reversed it. I just forgot to change the mark. So you'll want to mark it. Now at this point, latch bolt seems to work. Deadlocking tab seems to work. When I push that in, yep. So that operates correctly. The only other test really, well, 2 other tests. Will the cam on the mortise lock pull the latch bolt back? It sure will. I'm doing it with my finger. Then the final test is the outside locked? It is. Is the inside unlocked? It is. So we've successfully reversed this mortise lock. All right. That's all there is to this video. Thank you for watching. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.